Hey, it's time for another edition of Football Friends, the Musers, the podcast Cowboys edition. It's George Dunham and Bob Sturm. The week after the draft, we've had a chance to digest it. Bob poured his heart and soul into the 2026 NFL draft. And Bob, for the first time, and I don't know how long, I think the consensus, not only among Cowboy fans, but nationwide, they're like clapping their hands thinking, okay, the Cowboys had a really good draft. And even if it's just you get some okay players after what they did in the first round, the arrival of Caleb Downs, Bob, the guy,
Yes.
as we talked for the last couple of months, would any of the big six defensive players be there for the Cowboys at 12? Well, they move up to 11 to get Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State. And as we all know, he's so much more than just a safety.
Yeah, I mean, it's unbelievable. They might have won the draft, George. I realize we'll see about that. And I also realize that not only does the organization, but the Dallas Cowboys media machine probably gets carried away so often that there are many people perhaps rolling their eyes, asking to be shown the baby before the celebration ensues. But having said all that, it would be wild if the entire football universe was wrong about Caleb Downs. I shudder to think of any non-top 5 draft pick in our recent decades who has had his tires pumped by everybody at this level who did not turn into a superstar. I feel like the Cowboys got their guy. They got our guy. I mean, how many weeks in a row did we say the pie in the sky is Caleb Downs?
Sure. And
somehow they got it, and they didn't have to mortgage anything too insane at all. They almost stayed put. And I remember the different walkthroughs we did, the different dress rehearsals we did, and I think I said, if you have the number 1 pick in the draft, you're probably going Mendoza. And if you have the number 2 pick in the draft, you probably have to get one of those top edges in Bailey or Reese. But if you have your third choice, because this is where he was stacked on my board, number 3 overall, it would be a transformative Minkah Fitzpatrick from Ohio State type guy. Christian Parker basically described him back in January at his opening press conference of what he needs to make this defense really sing is a safety who's a nickel but can cover like a corner but tackle like a linebacker. They got Caleb Downs, and we do need to see it exist before we try to put him in the Ring of Honor or Canton. But doggone, man, it doesn't go like this very often. It usually goes one of two ways. Number one, you got to live with what the draft gives you, and you get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. And the other one is somebody falls in your lap that you never anticipated, and boy, this is cool, but I don't know how it's all going to work. But the CeeDee Lamb thing, when they got him, they already had Amari Cooper, they already had Michael Gallup. I think they still had a chance to keep Randall Cobb, but here comes CeeDee Lamb. Okay, that's cool. We got a wide receiver 3. No. This is their Cooper Flag type transformational. It's on now that Christian Parker was hired, but Caleb Downs is sort of joined at the hip with Christian Parker of this new era of Cowboys defense. I mean, that's what we're talking about. That's the significance of this. So, no pressure, kid. Come in here and make us forget, Cliff and Charlie and Darren Woodson. Get in here and be a legend right away, please.
I want to circle back to Darren Woodson at some point in this little podcast that we do.
Yes.
A couple of things that I was able to get out of the Star this week. Number one, and who knows, moving forward, where a guy is going to finish, like you said. Let's not put him up in the Ring of Honor just yet.
Right.
But this person said, I feel like time will prove we got the best player in this draft. Draft. That's the type of career that he's going to have. And we all know there's multiple forces that are ahead of that. The other thing is they were shocked that they had this opportunity after the Giants went offensive line with Mauioa at 10. Holy smokes, let's get on the phone with Miami to make sure that nobody else does, because there was a lot of interest in downs around the league, and they were able to do it just by giving up 2/5. Then they would move down later and get 2/4. I love all of that maneuvering, but I found it interesting that the Cowboys themselves were freaking out of, holy smokes, this could happen, because I think they were pretty convinced if he didn't go in the top 10 that the Giants would take him there at 10.
Yeah, I mean, look, the whole reason we had the phrasing for a month of the Big Six was because we were planning on not getting the big one. We were planning on how to best rationalize what Reuben Bain could mean, or what Mansour Delane could mean. And, you're just playing the percentages. You're counting on teams in front of you to cooperate. The Giants with Mauanoa, I got to tell you, if I'm the Giants, I probably do the same thing. I
don't think that's a bad pick at all. No,
in 5 years, maybe we'll all have a laugh at, boy, the Giants are the Giants for a reason, and the Cowboys pulled one over, and wasn't that a lucky day? But honestly, if you have a chance to take a dude on the offensive line versus a safety, come on. We're not gonna tell you that taking safeties is generally the fastest track to a Super Bowl, because it's not. The question is this guy and the value add of intelligence, of green dot, of just almost being an on-field coordinator and a culture changer, and those last few things I described, George. It's incredibly ridiculous to even suggest a rookie is capable of that. So I do want to say two things about Caleb Downs. One, I do think he is transformational. I do think he can do everything you want, and I do think he will be the type of guy that you want his face on billboards and you want to buy his jersey and all that sort of thing. But also, two, we're going to have to give him 15 minutes to get his feet wet. We're going to have to try, especially as media, we're going to have to try to, because this will happen. I mean, it's happening right now with Mikko Rantanen. I know that's a sick hockey reference for football friends, but just for everybody who has never heard that name before, he put on a legendary performance last year in the playoffs. This year he's been super quiet, and right now he's getting beat up on social media. Like, why aren't you being our hero every night?
Yeah, why don't you do that again? Yeah.
He got an A. He made the mistake of getting an A+ in the first semester, and now the parents expect an A+ every semester. You're like, whoa, that was a once in a career situation. That's not every time. And so I imagine in September, if Caleb Downs doesn't absolutely dominate games, people will already start I thought you guys promised this dude was the bee's knees.
Yeah.
And therefore I realize there's no better hype machine in sports than the Dallas Cowboys football machine. Like, it's unbelievable how the networks fight over Cowboys games, George. We talk about this all the time,
Sure.
But now you insert a new main character into that. Like, honestly, the last time a new main character was this hyped at his arrival, because don't forget, Micah Parsons was not hyped.
No.
Tony Romo was not hyped. Dak Prescott was not hyped. DeMarcus Ware was not hyped. Like, none of these guys came in with the palm leaves, and just the, oh my gosh, this guy, you wait till you see Caleb Downs. Like who would be the last guy to be introduced like this? Can you think, like, what's the comparison?
You're going to have to go back to the 90s, and
is it Emmitt Smith?
Emmett or Russell Maryland, maybe, because he was the first overall pick.
Yeah,
and
that's true.
And I think but even there, I remember it wasn't a consensus. Well, the Cowboys would have taken Russell Maryland with the first overall pick, but
I suppose the bar was really high for Zeke. Maybe I'm over my skis.
Okay, that's a good one. Yeah, I think Zeke was, okay, they took a running back that high, but then you look at what he did, and at Ohio State, and then he jumped right in here, and
that's
the
got to be
Cowboys
the
were
one.
legit. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
But on defense at a position like safety, like this feels unprecedented.
Yeah,
And-
Roy
and
Williams
so-
didn't have this kind of. I mean, he had some hype, but he also had his detractors of, man, can this guy cover in the NFL? I
Right.
mean, there's I don't hear detractors about Downs. So yeah, that's enough right there to make your draft. Just get that one right and get a break.
Like it's his era.
And yes, I think this is going to be the Caleb era. So then, but let's not discount. Okay, you've got 2 number 1 picks, so let's see how this works out at 20. And we mentioned they trade down 3 spots and they go get Malachi Lawrence from Central Florida. The only thing that sticks with me here is who they traded with in Philadelphia. You let the Eagles get up, and everything that I've read on Mekhi Lemon is the receiver out of USC. Some think he may be the best receiver in this draft, and it's almost like doing a deal with the devil of, okay, this is really going to help us as the Cowboys pick up 2 fourth-round picks, but now you're letting the Eagles get that A.J. Brown replacement, assuming that he is eventually traded to New England here in a month or two. So
yeah, he's done.
Yeah, that's the only thing, because you know more about this than I do, but I love the upside of Lawrence, and very productive player at Central Florida in the Big 12.
Yeah, I like Lawrence as well. I didn't like him this much, but that doesn't mean anything to anybody except me. As you go through the evaluation, you're just stacking guys like you think they should fall, and I think I had him in the 40s, and it was clear the Cowboys disagreed with me very early on, and I know that a member of their staff is a Central Florida guy, so just about every Cowboy they bring in, you can find a advocate on the staff that was with him at this place or with him at this place, and sort of, that was the Rashawn Gary was with Christian Parker, and you start going down the list of every single guy has an advocate every single place, it seems like. And so that shouldn't surprise us. They did good business here. I think you and I probably both would have loved to see him trade down again, because Buffalo kept trading back, and that's kind of a cool thing to keep adding things. But in the end, they trade with a team they always trade with. And I went back through all of the draft trades with the Philadelphia Eagles, and it's crazy. In 2021, the Micah trade was with the Eagles, the trade back. In 2020, there was a trade up to get Tyler Biadasz with the Eagles. In 2010, there was a trade up to get Sean Lee with the Eagles. In 2007, there was a trade up to get Anthony Spencer with the Eagles.
Wow.
In 2005, there was a trade up to get Chris Canty with the Eagles. And in 1997, there was a trade up to get David LaFleur with the Eagles. So that's who they trade with. And it's weird to have your biggest rival as your biggest trade partner. But, I mean, the last 3 trades the Cowboys have made, unless I'm forgetting one, and I probably am, but on my head, it's Eagles, Niners, Packers are your trade partners. Yeah. And if you asked anybody on the street who your biggest rivals are, you might get those 3 answers back. And I can't explain it. It's certainly interesting bedfellows, but it is what it is.
And I was also told that they have heard since even draft day from a few other teams that followed them, and let's say the next 5 picks, that they had Lawrence as their guy. So one criticism, and maybe that's with you, with your evaluation, having 30s, 40s, somewhere on there. Apparently the Cowboys weren't the only team in the league that thought he was a first-round talent.
No, we need to stress that. There were two other teams in the first round that were taking Malachi Lawrence from all of our findings, and I believe one has been documented in San Francisco, and I think another team behind them is an AFC team who was going to take him and then ended up trading out of the first, so you could probably figure that out if you want to bad enough. But 2 different teams that indicated Malachi Malachi Lawrence was their guy, and the Cowboys snatched him out before they could, so he wasn't going to last into the second round, and they loved the guy, and they sort of it sort of leaked out that they loved the guy a couple days before the draft, and with some of their sources, and I like so if you pinpoint a guy and you say this is who we want to leave with, and then you pick up 2 additional fourths to do it, I think we have to again say in their room, they had a very, very good and smart process. And now, much like Caleb Downs, it's going to come down to, can Malachi Lawrence be great? And I'd already love to ask where he ranks amongst the edges, because obviously he's just a kid. But in 12 months, if you had to guess from now, and you had Rashawn Gary, Donovan Ezeraku, and Malachi Lawrence, and you had to stack your 3 edges, assuming all 3 are still Dallas Cowboys in 12 months from right now, how do you think that order will look?
Wow, that's interesting. I've been looking at the 2 deep a lot and trying to project.
I was just going to say your guy James Houston, your guy Sam Williams. They've got a lot of edges. I'm assuming those guys aren't in the conversation, but
they might be. They might be.
But I wonder, are
what if Williams finally makes that jump? That they always thought that he would. I think he could be in the picture. But to your point, though, I think that Malachi would have a chance to be a big contributor this year. And again, going back to our expectations before the draft, well, he better be. He better step right in and be ready to help this team here, next year and certainly the year after.
Yeah. Some of us big jerks in the media will watch with great interest the careers of Akeem Mesidor and the careers of Keldrick Falk, to kind of see if they had their heads screwed on, because they could have had either of those guys. They traded away from Mesidor. They passed on Falk. T.J. Parker was one who I really liked, but they wanted somebody at that position, and they picked Malachi Lawrence. And just to go back to him real fast, he's got all of the makings. Like if you say in this draft there are no elite pass rushers, like nobody feels like Von Miller is in this draft, or Myles Garrett, or Will Anderson, or somebody like that. So if we say, well, that guy doesn't live in this draft, but who will be the best edge out of this draft? It could be Malachi Lawrence over David Bailey or over Arvell Reese. We just don't know. We don't have a time machine. But if you're asking what makes a superior pass rusher, I'll go back to 2 things Malachi Lawrence has a ton of, which is athleticism. He has unbelievable testing. Tested off the charts, RAS score that you wouldn't believe. Generational. And then the other thing, you watch his tape, the dude has pass rush skills. He's got hand skills. He's got, moves. He's got counters. So I realize the production was not A+. He did not have 14 sacks. He had 7.5. But those 2 things, man, that's what you're looking for. Is he athletic enough? And does he know what he's doing enough? And maybe the next step is just getting into the NFL program and the coaching and the weight room, and maybe he's on his path already and we just didn't know it. And so the Cowboys bet hard on him. And honestly, again, if I may go back to something we've talked about, which is the asset allocation of the draft, Caleb Downs was 55% of your draft, and Malachi Lawrence was 30% of your draft. So combined, those 2 pieces of the pie were 85% of your draft weekend pie. Yeah. And the rest, all the other names we haven't mentioned yet, are 15%. And so as that would tell you, these are the 2 guys that need to be nothing worse than solid starters soon. And if one or both of them turns into an all-pro or a Pro Bowler, you're going to feel like you did great in 2026. And by the way, you needed to, because your last several drafts have let you down.
Okay, so what else did the Cowboys get in the draft? And who is Dee Winters? Sounds like a female jazz singer, but apparently a starter on next year's defense. Let's go there. on Football Friends when we come back. Okay, Bob, I don't know about you, but I have counted now that this team has at least six new starters on defense as they transform this thing. Otito Ogbanya, who was acquired from the Chargers.
Let's hope he's good enough that we all learn his pronunciation.
Is that right? Did I do it right?
No, I'm not ripping you. I don't know how to say his name, and I hope to learn because he's so good that we'll hear it so many times.
Do you think it's Otito, Bob? Is that what you're saying?
I think it's Otito. I was more worried about the last name, but I'm here for Podcast George.
Okay, Rashawn Gary, no doubt he starts at that one outside linebacker spot.
Yeah.
Dee Winters, acquired from San Francisco.
Yes.
So I did some digging on him, productive player, and I'm thinking, well, why would San Francisco be ready to deal him? From what I understand, if everyone's back and playing next year and the return of Fred Warner and all that he was kind of odd man out in San Francisco and still seen as a productive player and a guy who, again, we keep going back to last year, is an upgrade from the 25 defense.
Yeah. So, every team's got a different situation, but just to be clear, with the 49ers situation, for those who care, Fred Warner was out almost all season with an injury. He's back. Dre Greenlaw went to Denver to get the big bucks, and Denver kind of regretted it after 1 year, and now he's back. And so those were their two starters. And then they drafted Nick Martin in the third round of 2025 from Oklahoma State, and he had a very quiet redshirt year, but they feel much better about him. So those are three big investments for those two linebacker spots for the 49ers that they like to use. And so Winters was going to be their fourth linebacker. That doesn't mean they don't like him. They like him a lot. They played him over 1,000 snaps, and he played really well. And I went through the tape yesterday, and I had a great time, George. I think he's got a chance. I don't want to oversell him, but I also don't want to undersell him. You get him for very little. If we can go back to the pie, this was about 1% of their draft was their fifth-round pick, and they flipped that for what could be their starting middle linebacker. And that's huge. Yeah. If he can take that role on even for just 1 year, then you're going to feel great about what you did with your fifth-round pick, because you're not going to find a starting middle linebacker in the fifth round. And that's why I think the timing of the trade's important, George, because they did the trade right about the time that they started getting cleaned out at linebacker. So if you go back and if you're watching coverage or listening on the ticket to coverage, you realize that the linebackers started falling off the board right there at 43, I want to say. Jacob Rodriguez went at 43, Josiah Trotter at 46, Jake Golday at 51. And I want to say right around Josiah Trotter going is when they pulled the trigger with the Niners. And the reason that's important is at 46, you're only halfway to 92. So, again, 45 more players are going to go before you pick C.J. Allen. And so you're cheering for C.J. Allen to fall 45 more picks. There's no chance. They realize that, so they got quickly on the phone with the Niners before Dee Winters went somewhere else. And I assume maybe the trade was even in place, that if we don't get our guy, on day 2, we want to do this deal with you. And the Niners said, well, we'll hold him as long as we can, but let us know as soon as you know. Well, the Cowboys decided after about pick 46 or 47 that they're making a trade, and we're all like, whoa, did they just trade up into the second round? And if they did, that will probably cost them their second round in 2027. But instead, they send that fifth for Dee Winters. And I'll just say, the way he attacks downhill, the way he has speed, the way he reads out run plays, and really even the way he covers. And I don't know if you were able to read my review of him, George, but there's a sequence with Phillip Rivers that's awesome that you will really enjoy. Because there were 2 plays in that Colts game, and Rivers got him the first time, and Winters was waiting for Rivers to try it again. In the fourth quarter, Rivers did try it again, and it turned into a pick 6 for Dee Winters. And then after the game on Inside the NFL, which I know you watch, the Rivers actually sought out Winters after it to talk about, how did you know I was going to throw there? And it was a cool sequence, right?
So you're telling me that's a linebacker making a play, and not just a play, a pick 6 from the linebacker position?
And attacking. And you know what? This is a guy that was trained by 2 guys that I would want my linebackers to learn from, Gary Patterson and Fred Warner.
Amen.
And holy heck, man, this guy did, 4 years at TCU, I think, and then 3 years next to Fred Warner. And,
great point.
And did you see when Warner put on Instagram after Dee Winters was traded, he had the little crying face and said Dallas just got them one for real. And so, hey, if Fred Warner trained somebody, and Gary Patterson did, and then the tape says what it says, this is so much better than what we had last year, George, where you have basically a linebacker that allows himself to be blocked like he's a kicker. And just no thank you. No thank you. So this, I don't know if Dee Winters will end up being the starter. I don't know if this means now they're out on Jordan Brooks. I don't know. What I do think, though, is this is great use of a 5th-round pick.
Yeah, I do too. And then you add in Jalen Thompson and Kobe Durant.
Yeah.
And of course, Caleb Downs would be the other starter. That would be 6 new starters.
Yeah.
So that's, you can't get 11 new starters. And they didn't, let's be honest, they didn't need 11 new starters. You throw those guys next to Quinnen Williams, and you hope DeMarvion Overshone can stay healthy, and you hope that,
could you
Deron
say
Bland comes back and starts looking like himself again, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, yeah, I could see that defense taking a big jump.
Yeah, and if you are willing to say like Siobhan Revel is new, or Revel, I think I've been saying that wrong the whole time. Once again, I hope you play well enough that we learn your names.
Revel, I believe is.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
And then whether PJ Locke has a role, and you just start going down the list, and you're like, holy heck, do we have like a dozen of our top 17 defenders are just flat out new players? So I don't know. I don't know how well it's going to work, but it's going to be different. And the goal should be, let's get close to 20. So I keep 10 important defensive metrics. You know this. They are very basic. Points, yards, rushing yards, passing yards, takeaways, third downs, red zone, explosives allowed, sacks per attempt, and so forth. So 10 key metrics, and these were basically Aikman selected, but I just kept doing them over the course of time. And the Cowboys were in the 30s, George, in 6 of them.
Okay.
And they were 29th in 2 more of them. And so the goal is I need you between 16 and 20 in as many of these 10 categories as we can get. And if you do get between 16 and 20, we're willing to call you an NFL average defense. And if the Cowboys have an NFL average defense, they can win the Super Bowl because they're going to have a top 5 offense.
Yeah.
Most likely. And so that's the key, is one side of the ball is dominant. The other side is right around NFL average. You can't do dominant and worst in the league. And that's what they tried to do last year, and that's why it went so poorly.
Well, and just for emphasis, I don't know what's worse, giving up 47% on third down or allowing 54 plays of 25 yards or more.
Yeah.
That's what this Cowboys defense did last year. It's just staggering how bad they were. It's staggering.
You just can't win like that.
No, you can't. Okay, so let's talk about the impact after the first round.
Yeah.
And Dee Winters comes here just like we thought. Okay, we didn't have his name, but we thought they would be looking to add a veteran linebacker because that's where the linebackers were going to go. And the second round. So then you roll into the third round, and it gave me pause originally because you're taking another defensive player out of the University of Michigan. But all I can tell is Jayshon Barham is a tackling machine, and I love what I see in him, and they're going to the way it was described to me, he's maybe not the top of the line model of like Arvell Reese, but very similar, and they're going to start him off inside. They know he can play outside. They're going to start him off inside and see what he can do.
Yeah, I'm really hyped about this guy. Really hyped. I did not know his work. I was not familiar with it. I go 75 deep or so, George, and I just didn't get to him because as an edge, he wasn't in the top class according to most, and as a off-ball linebacker, he didn't play there at all in 2025. And so he fell through the cracks for me, hand in the air. But you know what? Luckily for everybody, I'm not the Cowboys front office. They were on him, and they love him. And now that I've looked at him, I think I love him too. Yeah. And the vision, if I understand it correctly, and maybe you're hearing different, I'm not sure. But here's what I believe Jayshon Barham is. I believe he's the other linebacker. So we just talked about Dee Winters and that sort of off-ball, kind of middle linebacker. I realize the two linebackers are interchangeable, but they do have different designations. If Dee Winters and let's say Maris Leafau is the plan or Shamar James is behind him, so that's the depth chart there. The other guy is DeMarvion Overshown. And we all love Demo, but we also know that Demo has to prove he can stay available. And also, he's almost out of contract. And also, he just hired David Mulligetta. So there's some complications here. I think Jayshon Barham is DeMarvion Overshown's understudy, his insurance policy in the event of injury, and his successor in the event of contract problems. And I think this plan was in place long before the Mulligetta news, so you don't have to panic about that. But I do think they're the same type of guy, same type of player, and more importantly, the same position on Christian Parker's design, which is called the hybrid linebacker. So you have one linebacker who plays linebacker, pretty much off ball. He might blitz, but it will be those A-gap blitzes. It's not going to be much off the edge, although honestly, Dee Winters has rushed off the edge, and at times he's looked pretty good. So maybe you can even interchange them from down to down. I don't know. But at this position, the Overshown position, let's call it, the hybrid position, they do want to keep you off the ball most of the time, but they also can run a 5-1 where they kind of make you the edge outside, let's say, a bigger inside guy like Rashawn Gary.
Yeah. So
then everybody sort of slides down and you can rush off the edge, which is what Barham did at Michigan this past year. And it was pretty good. As an edge, he's aight, and he's bigger. He's like 250 something. So this guy, I heard his player comp, George, and you'll love this. It's the Tasmanian Devil. And, he just he plays like a nut. He plays like an animal. And, not that dissimilar to Dee Winters in terms of flying around and BSU, the blow us up type linebacker. So, again, this is not your 2025 Cowboy linebackers. And I love the speed. I love the disposition, the attitude, and the versatility. And I think, they use Zach Bond in their press conference as the model. Another guy who was a pass rusher in college, but an off-ball linebacker in the NFL for the Saints and now the Eagles, as sort of the template there. So yeah, I really think this is a scheme fit for the Cowboys. Barham is.
Yeah, I do too. Seems to really fit the Christian Parker mold. So we roll on to the fourth round, and that's where the Cowboys got some offensive line help in Drew Shelton offensive tackle from Penn State, but I'm told he can play guard too, so he's very versatile. And there's a tackle issue on this team, as we all know. Not sure what exactly is going to happen at that position, but I think that's a good, solid pick and, best guy available. And then also in the fourth round, you pick up the Devin Moore, the corner from Florida, who, while he did have injuries, he's got good speed, especially for his height.
Yep.
And from what I'm told, they're not worried about the injuries. They really put him through some tough tests on that, and they think he's good to go on that. And then you add a versatile defensive lineman in LT Overton.
Yes.
Again, a productive player from Alabama. I'm trying not to get too excited about this, but it's just like every pick to them that they made makes sense to me. Doesn't mean they're going to be all pros, but I think they can help this team, and I think help pretty quickly.
Yeah, I think so. And again, these are small percentage plays. Again, if I said 15% was after those top two guys, so Barham would be like 6%, and then Shelton 3, Devin Moore 3, and then it drops down to like 1 for Overton, 1 for Dee Winters, and 1 for Anthony Smith. Just the we're using the points chart of the draft picks. So, of all these names, I was not super familiar with Devin Moore, but I find him very promising. But my overview, George, would be when you get to day 3 in the draft, let's really take shots at premium positions. And so again, Drew Shelton, he's not my cup of tea, but he's an offensive lineman. I got zero problem with them saying, you know what, we think he's the best offensive lineman left. Let's take a shot. Most of the time it turns into like Josh Ball or Chaz Green or Matt Waletzko, and we never really hear from them after training camp practices or the final preseason game. Like, usually it doesn't hit. But I've got news. There are 31 other teams in the NFL, and many of those 31 other teams actually find starters on day 3 in the offensive line. Like, you don't have to take your entire offensive line with your first-round picks. It actually can happen. Yeah. So one of these years they're going to hit on one. I'm not positive I would gamble that it's Drew Shelton, just because, George, I have a thing for play strength from my offensive lineman, and I think he is more of an athlete who they think they can make stronger. And to that I say, let's see it. I look forward to that. He's fine. Whatever. It's fine. Devin Moore, though, this is a cornerback that should not be in the 4th round, except he's had trouble staying healthy at Florida. But if you just simply look at the tape he has, it's really, really impressive.
Especially like the back half of this last year, too.
Yeah. And I don't know if he's ultimately a safety convert or if they love him as like a zone corner. But he finished strong at Florida. We do know that we have a Florida Gator as our head coach. So there are some ties that bind us. But again, if you're going to take a shot on a corner in round 4 and he has tape that impressive, I'm in. I just wish there was more tape. I just wish he played more. He has like 1,100 snaps in 4 seasons, and I just told you that Dee Winters has like 1,100 snaps last year. So that means homeboy doesn't play much, and we need that to change if you're going to be in the NFL. Otherwise, you're not for long, as they say. And then Overton, real fast. I've been down on him since he was touted as like the top defensive lineman in America when he went to A&M 4 years ago. I guess 3 years ago. I'm trying to remember which class. I guess class of 22, George.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was a 5-star. He was a can't miss, and then he went to A&M and sort of spared everybody to death, and then went to Alabama and I think got slightly better. It's just he's not twitchy at all. 26-inch vertical leap. He's for a guy his size, you want psychotic twitch, explosiveness, and he's not that. But what he is a trench grunt. And a guy who's strong and a guy who won't get pushed off the ball. And while I prefer the guys who are in the backfield, I understand in the scheme you need guys who can hold their water and keep linebackers clean, and I think you'll play them more inside than outside. But again, George, at pick 137, yeah, sure.
Take a chance, see what happens.
Yeah. The reason I was down on him is he was being touted as a top 50 guy for most of the draft year, and he just... No. There are no splash plays on the film. There is no good testing. So he fell and fell and fell. But again, there comes a point in the valuation where you're like, okay, at this price, let's do it.
And in the seventh round, they got what is, I'm told, a speed project with Anthony Smith, the wide receiver from East Carolina. 4.4 speed. And again, seventh round. I'm told maybe he can play special teams, they hope.
Let's hope so.
Because C.J. Goodwin is not back. There's a number of guys who played just special teams that they're trying to upgrade. And I don't know, maybe he's a guy who can make the team as a, emergency wide receiver down the line, but a guy who can get on the field because he can run. And
he can run, and he can also catch the Bomberooski.
Yeah.
When he was at East Carolina, he had some ridiculous games. Check out the Tulane game. He had like 150 yards on, I think, 3 catches or 4 catches or something goofy like that. So he's got long speed. Yeah, if you're picked on late in day 3, you better be able to cover kicks, and we'll find out because he hasn't really done it since 2023 when he was at NC State. But he portaled to East Carolina. They made him a full-time receiver. He was very productive, but I don't have much on him yet. And, it's go to camp and earn a spot. And we do know, both of us do, that wide receiver is a spot on this team where you can make the team. There's numbers there that say if you're impressive, they need you. They don't have depth at wide receiver. So Anthony Smith may have fallen to the right team because, there are jobs to be won after Ryan Flanoy. It's just a bunch of stuff at wide receiver.
Rashawn Gary, Jalen Thompson, Dee Winters, these draft picks, it all sounds really good, but there's one thing that this whole thing really depends on, and let's talk about that next as we finish up here with Football Friends. I guess every team, Bob, thinks that, man, they just killed the draft, and we got our guy, we got exactly what we needed. And you see celebrations in the war rooms, and you hear ridiculous calls from the head coach and the owner to a player saying, hey, man, we love you, man. Way to go, bro. And, by the way, do you like shoddy calls, or do you think they're just painful and cringy?
They're all kind of the same is what I would say. He has a way about him, and I bet you it's super warm for someone not used to it, but perhaps I'm becoming desensitized. But if you love it, I want you to love it, George.
I kind of love it, and I laugh at it,
Okay.
just because we always on our show have the man and brother count, how many times he's going to get that out.
Boy, he's got that.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And you know how much I love both of those.
I know. So, but it all sounds good. And we just talked for 45 minutes about how good we think this last week has been for the Cowboys and how good this offseason has been. Going back to when they named Christian Parker the defensive coordinator. And I'm not ready to throw cold water on this whole thing. I'm just saying if you are trying to look at it objectively, I wanted them to get a guy like this for defensive coordinator, not just the same old guy. Okay, let's take another defensive coordinator from 20 years in the NFL. How about a guy with new ideas? And he's seen as the youngest and brightest among NFL young coaches and ready to be a coordinator and all this. Bobby's never called a game.
Ever. And
that's my only hesitation with this whole thing is what if? I think the guy's going to be great. All markers say he's a good young coach. He comes from a great background. Vic Fangio and is it Vance Joseph or who's the other coordinator from Denver?
We'll
go hot
Vance
dog
Joseph.
McGillicuddy as a
Vance Joseph.
Yeah, Vance
Believe in
Joseph.
yourself.
Yeah, okay, I was right. But man, What if he is not all that? And what if they have, because they have put all of their defensive chips in, okay, this is what CP wants. This is the kind of player CP wants. I'm just saying,
right.
I hope he's as good as we think he is, because if he's not, or if he's maybe just a little off, man, this whole thing is messed up.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they've made some huge bets on Brian Schottenheimer and Christian Parker, and a huge bet on Caleb Downs. And if any of them prove to be fraudulent, we'll be rebuilding this thing in a couple of years all over again, George, if we still have the energy to do it.
I don't know if I do, Bob. I don't know if I can start at the bottom again.
I know. So they've listen. We usually bank on the belief that they're going to at some point try a different route. And this, if nothing else, this should signify a different route altogether. I'm looking at my roster sheet. I see 16 new Dallas Cowboys since January, and of that, I think I see 12 of them are defensive players.
That's what we wanted.
And most of them are very young. I think only one of them could be considered old, and I don't think we've ever said his name on Football Friends, so let me say the name. Jonathan Bullard is a Dallas Cowboy, guys.
We haven't brought him up, and he could be in the rotation. Sure could.
He's been in this league a long time, and he knows what he's doing in NFL trenches, and he's aight. In fact, he might be the type of guy that keeps LT Overton inactive. I don't know, but we'll see. These are camp things we don't have to worry about until we come back from our little vacation, Georgie. But just overall, it's a new path, and that should excite us. In fact, if you want to go back even further, you can say that the holdovers all got here kind of just last year. And here, before we go, are the defensive players that played for the Dallas Cowboys when Mike McCarthy was the head coach. Okay?
Okay.
That wasn't that long ago, George.
No.
It was like 16 months ago, right?
Yeah.
Okay, here are the carryovers from that period in time. Malik Hooker is your veteran. He is the oldest Dallas Cowboy, longest tenured Dallas Cowboy defender from 2021.
Yep.
In 2022, they added Sam Williams, Deron Bland, and Marquise Bell. So now we're up to 4. In 2023, Demo. Now we're at 5. And in 2024, they added 3 more. And I'm not sure if any of these guys even make this team. Kalen Carson, Maris Leofau, and Josh Butler. Wow. So there are 8 holdovers from Mike McCarthy in the entire defensive side of the building.
And you could have just 4 or 5 of them on the team when they play their first game next year.
Yeah, and how many are starters? Deron Bland for sure.
2, maybe.
Demo most likely.
Hooker's going to start, yeah.
And Malik Hooker most likely.
Okay.
So 3. And that's Mike McCarthy.
Yeah.
You know, we're not even talking Jason Garrett.
No.
And in fact, there's only one Dallas Cowboy period from Jason Garrett's era, Dak Prescott.
Wow.
1.
That's it.
So it really is a not for long league. Time moves very fast. So all these young men who are 20 and 21, and you're just like, man, we get to watch these guys for a decade. No, you probably get to watch them for about the 2.7-year average that NFL careers last.
Yeah. And that's why, 4 years and you're vested? That's why guys just hope, man, can I make it 4 years in this league? Most of them think that way. Well, that was awesome, Bob. I tell you what, let's do one more before we go into football hibernation next week, and just some things we'll track over the summer with this team. There's a few things from the draft, and maybe some of the undrafted free agents. There's a couple of interesting names on that list too. Maybe they have a chance to make this team this year. That's we worry about stuff like that on Football Friends.
Ooh, we're back in the Baylor tight end business, Georgie.
Oh boy, that's an interesting story too.
It definitely is.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Okay. All right, we'll do that next week. We're out of time for this week. Thanks to Peter Welpton for producing. For Bob Stern, I'm George Dunham, and we'll talk to you next time on Football Friends.
Yeah!